I'm posting this video in two parts, so if you're just looking for the big reveal, then you're going to want to skip right forward to the end of part 2. I'm trying a few things for the first time with this project, which inevitably means making a few mistakes. Rather than edit them out, I'm going to include them and narrate them. I'm making a box out of this 40mm white oak. I decided I liked the end grain on the oak, so I'm going to make it with butt joints. Given the difficulty I've had getting the butt joints neat, I should probably have attempted box joints. I guess I'll give that a go for next time. I'm actually making two sets of these boxes. Whichever one turns out better I'll be giving as a gift, and the other I'll be keeping for myself. That will become a bit more clear later. The butt joints form a loop, a bit like brickwork, and I'll be stacking two loops, like two courses of bricks, to give the box its height. To make it more visually interesting, I'm planning to use some exotic hardwood for the base, and for a layer between the courses, think bricks and mortar, and for some splines across the corner joins. So what I need to do is to cut some thin strips of hardwood the same width as the table saw curve that I can use at least for my splines. Here I'm making two mistakes. Firstly, the camera zoom is starting to slip, so we end up with a super close-up view of the table saw blade. I didn't notice this because I'm focusing on making my second mistake, where I'm learning that this is not the good way of cutting thin strips of wood. I'm jamming the wood between the blade and the sled guide, so I abandon this pretty quickly. So now I'm making a jig, which allows me to repeatedly position the workpiece relative to the table saw blade. It will fix into the T-track of the table saw, and I'm using the mechanism salvaged from an old stairgate to adjust the cut width. This should allow me to repeatedly cut thin strips. My first attempt to cut a thin strip ruined the factory edge on this hardwood. I had to make this clamp down jig to cut one good edge on the workpiece. And the camera slipped again, but this time I noticed. So now I'm nearly ready to try my new jig to cut a thin strip. Having put one straight edge on the hardwood, I need to cut a second edge parallel, and then I can start taking strips off. Success! It cut a strip. But did you see where it went? Yes, lesson 3. When cutting thin strips, you need a 0 thickness insert for your table saw, unless you want to fish each piece out from inside the saw. So I've sanded the edges of the hardwood strips and found sets of them which butt up neatly together. I'm going to glue these strips onto the box to form a base and also sandwich a layer in between the two loops. The other strips I'm going to be saving to make splines with, which will now be in part 2 of this video.